that scat fresh?
No.
Got like ends.
Did we all put scat of some kind?
I put pellet, but okay. It is a scat.
The question was who? Right.
And
Yeah, sorry.
I called it a turkey.
and there's a number of them all around. And who is it, Jeff?
I called it a
Well, it's
turkey.
turkey scats.
Turkey.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it turkey? It looks like
It's turkey.
Yeah,
Yeah, you couldn't think of a goose being here.
It looks like goose poop, and then I didn't know
I'm
that
gonna
scat.
take
Well, that's a common thing. So we'll talk about that. So how do you tell goose scats from turkey scats?
Turkeys are eating seeds, and there's a lot of seed
Okay, so
chaff in them.
great. So coarser materials on the whole. And
I guess geese eat seeds when they're headed
Sure.
down,
and what do geese really like to? What's one of their primary food sources?
Grass.
Grasses. They're grazers, right? So they're eating a lot of vegetative material.
Yeah.
And so this is old, of course, which can make that more challenging. But a lot of times, what you'll have and well, let's talk about this. Remind me if I get off track about coloration. Okay. So, but to move on from there, let's just talk about ecological context real quick. Well, so here's another thing to think about, and also somewhat subjective. But what do you often see when you see one goose scat? A whole bunch of goose scats. Okay, and then when you're seeing a whole bunch of goose scats, what's it like right there?
Water in the lawn.
Usually at the edge of, so a lot of hanging. Now they could come down and land in this and graze around in here, but what would be interesting about that is if this necessarily wouldn't be a spot where geese would just be like, that looks like a good spot just to hang out.
Right.
Usually if they're going to be down there, you know, they could do some grazing like right up here on these, and you know what, this is actually, I take that back, that road could be a good grazing spot right there. However, it's just sort of atypical for where you would see accumulations of geese sign, whereas very, very typical, and this brings up a whole nother point too. Obviously, there are going to be things we encounter in interpreting track and sign where we could be wrong, right? Because we say, well, what is typical is this, and that usually makes the most sense, and that's just the way the world is. There's things that are out of the ordinary and different than we were expecting, and we have our own human biases and all that kind of thing. However, it can also be when we have a very solid foundation of ecological usage of all these different ecological niches and what creatures are doing, we begin to piece things together with kind of stunning accuracy. And not to say that even the greatest trackers in the world can't be significantly wrong with interpretations. But these are just things for us to think about. So what we can say with this is that there's a number of these around. They're all very similar, built of the same material. They're scattered about in a place that is great for turkeys, and we also have turkeys that frequent that, and we have turkey sign to accompany it. Whereas if we put that into geese thing, we'd say this is kind of a weird spot for a goose to hang out. We've only got this one scat, which it could just be a pair, and so that could be a potential. And then let's come back to the coloration thing. Because of that grazing material, which you often have, you know, when so geese will often they'll be very green when they first come out, and then they'll turn kind of deep purple black because of what they're eating. It's a squishier material. They often break down considerably faster, but they also, especially in rainy places, tend to stain the ground around them because that coloration washes into the earth, whereas turkey scats just tend to be that coarser, woodier, seedier material, and they just drop a scat and it just dries up and does its thing without coloring the world, so to speak. There's also what kind of geese do you have predominantly?
Canada.
Canada. What do you think about the size of this for Canada geese?
A little small.
It's a little on the small side. Now, we've got juvenile Canada geese, and males tend to be 10% larger than female in Canada geese, so you could be a smaller female, yada, yada, yada. However, this also just fits the bill perfectly for some of your, well, I should say it could do that for geese too, if we were in an area with a bunch of geese all growing up. But it's just kind of your classic all-around turkey scat in both material, placement, shape. It's held that really nice. That's another thing with your turkey scats, is because of what they're eating, they tend to have greater integrity in the world structurally, and they'll stay around for a while. So all of these things are matching up perfectly with turkey scats. Turkey scat is what we're calling.